hello there, happy Sunday, friends and lovers, and welcome to 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, with Amy Nasir.
That's me.
And we could not be gladder that you are here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Today is November 29th, 2020, the 334th day of the year, with just 32 days remaining until 2021. And what is that I smell in the air? What are those colors that should, I forget the expression, should grab my gathering eye? I don't even know.
What, are you talking about Christmas?
What I see are Christmas lights on our tree.
Ooh, Christmas lights are over there.
That's right. And the smell of pine is in the air, soon to be followed by cinnamon, roasting chestnuts, and all manner of good things. Thank you so much for joining us. We are have no holidays to announce today, ironically enough. Looked through all the, this day, this happened and all that, and it just sad stuff we don't even want to talk about. Although we are reminded...
Like plane crashes or something?
Well, it's the day that George Harrison passed away, for example.
I see.
And, my great and abiding love for George Harrison, both his music and his wisdom.
Yeah.
And remember, yesterday, today was tomorrow, but tomorrow, today will be yesterday.
You got that? You got that. All right.
You got that.
You got that.
On the birthday front, it is Louisa May Alcott's birthday. So a good day to reread Little Women or Little Men. Or go see the recent Little Women production. That was actually pretty good. With Saoirse Ronan and Emma Watson. A little motivation there for you Harry Potter fans as well. The latest production of Little Women is great fun. We're calling back to our Benevolence episode.
Hello!
Where are you? That was episode number 1, March 8th of this year.
Wait a minute. We actually chose Benevolence as the first episode for us? That's awesome.
Who would have imagined? Given our style and all.
Yeah,
that's
given
a big
our
surprise.
cynical, angry,
Well, I'm calling back to that because
worship.
Given that it's 2 days after Thanksgiving and 2 days before we start the month of Christmas.
Isn't it 3 days after Thanksgiving?
Is it 3 days after Thanksgiving?
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
is.
That's why I have a co-host. So given that it's 2 days after Thanksgiving... Oh, wait, you said 3.
Yes.
We're calling back to Benevolence because the topic is goodwill. And in our first episode, the episode called Benevolence, the word of the day was confidence.
Okay.
And we discussed confidence as the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something.
Or themselves.
Or themselves. Well,
right.
Yes, that's right. Yes, certainly. Self-confidence.
Can you be confident in confidence alone?
We need to add that to the show notes. If you haven't listened to the song I Have Confidence from The Sound of Music recently, yes. I actually get a lump in my throat from that one. That is so good.
So nice.
Yes, confidence, the feeling or belief that one can rely on someone or something, or as Amy says, on oneself. See trust. And our theme for the day was benevolence, which is goodwill, a disposition to do good. And it was fun because Merriam-Webster said, to be benevolent, this is from the dictionary, to be benevolent, it helps to have money. But it's not necessary. Kind assistance of a non-financial sort can be benevolent.
Okay.
Now, in the episodes between this episode and episode 1, we've repeated that several times in several different contexts.
That money helps?
That money helps. This idea that it is even easier to be kind and generous and benevolent if one has achieved personal success. And we related that to the virtue of selfishness. And this idea that before assisting others, be sure to put on your own mask, when the airplane starts going down. So I love that even Merriam-Webster recognizes that to be benevolent, it helps to have money, but it's not necessary. And in the season of goodwill, the season of Christmas, and that to me is what Christmas is all about.
Yeah.
That is the meaning of Christmas, is it's the season in which we celebrate goodwill.
Right.
We celebrate benevolence. We celebrate earnestness.
Peace on earth, goodwill toward men.
Yes. We could go to Leonard Peikoff, The Philosophy of Objectivism lecture series. Though accidents and failures are possible, they are not, according to objectivism, the essence of human life. On the contrary, the achievement of values is the norm. Mm-hmm. Speaking now for the moral man, moral by the objectivist definition. This is Leonard Peikoff. Success and happiness are the metaphysically to be expected. In other words, objectivism rejects the view that human fulfillment is impossible, that man is doomed to misery, that the universe is malevolent. We advocate the benevolent universe premise. The benevolent universe does not mean that the universe feels kindly to man or that it's out to help him achieve his goals. No, the universe is neutral. It simply is. It is indifferent to you. You must care and adapt to it, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. But reality is benevolent in the sense that if you do adapt to it, that is, if you do think, value, and act rationally, then you can, and barring accidents, you will achieve your values. He goes on, this is the Lecture 8 of the Philosophy of Objectivism series. He quoted this almost directly in Opar as well, Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand, when he talks about the benevolent universe premise.
Well, that's a great quote. So this means that the universe is basically neutral. It's not out to get me, and that if I work hard and I set my goals and I think rationally and I take the right actions, that I can get what I want, including money.
If your ethics are based on reality, mm-hmm. then success is simply a matter of cause and effect.
Oh.
You do the right things and the right things happen. The main thing that stands in the way of that is not so much random chance as it is other people.
Okay.
But it turns out that most other people don't stand in your way.
That's true.
It turns out that most other people are not your enemy. Most other people are simply trying to do their own best. Mm-hmm. And this is why we talk about benevolence as the norm.
Well, I'm glad I'm living into today.
Yep.
Not 100 or 200 years ago. That's
yep.
Excellent.
We had, back in that other episode, we had another Leonard Peikoff quote, which I think embodies what we're talking about. So it is important to tell Plato that he is wrong, but it is more important that Aristotle hears that somebody recognizes that he is right.
So are you trying to say that the first duty of justice is to defend and praise the good? That's an old line from Opar that Robert and I fell in love with when we first got together.
Yes, it really is the whole point, and something that the Christmas season brings out.
Yes.
That quote goes on to say, it's important to tell James Taggart, it's important that James Taggart not get away with the fraud that he runs Taggart Transcontinental, but it is more important that Reardon find someone who can understand what he is achieving. I said so that
visibility is really important.
That's right. I said back on March 8th, as Scrooge pledges, I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirit of all three shall strive within me. And I mentioned that last week in the context of Thanksgiving, that I will keep the spirit of Thanksgiving.
Yes.
The spirit both of thanks, of gratitude, and of production, the virtues that make Thanksgiving possible. And I will keep that throughout the year. And that's what I encourage everybody to do.
Yes.
And now we can tack on to that goodwill, the spirit of Christmas.
And speaking of A Christmas Carol written by Charles Dickens, it's actually one of my very favorite redemption stories.
It is.
It's a great redemption story. It's not a story about, suffering and weeping and repenting.
No.
It's about living life in the best way that you possibly can and the most happy way that you can, actually opening your eyes up to the values that you have around you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. We had quoted Adam Smith, who had said, "It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard for their own self-interest. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages." I love that quote from Adam Smith. It makes clear that you are right to pursue your values.
Right.
That your business, your production, your creation is not a matter of sacrifice or duty.
Mm-hmm.
But I also pointed out that I also have a problem with that quote. Because when Adam Smith says, it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard for their own self-interest. The word but is the wrong word. It should be and.
True.
It is the butcher or the baker's benevolence that causes him to look out for his own self-interest and makes that of enormous benefit to us.
That's very, very true, darling. It's a great observation.
And when's a better time than Christmas to realize that our values are in harmony? That our trade relations are win-win relations.
And speaking of Christmas and speaking of commercialism and capitalism, basically being a butcher or baker and bringing out the best within yourself and bringing out your best wares, your best efforts, your best creativity, and putting it up for trade with other people is such a wonderful thing. And in this quote here, there's a wonderful advertising principle in here that I just noticed. And never talk to them of our own necessities, but of their advantages. So in other words, bring out the benefit to them.
Yes.
To show them, to illustrate to them why your particular cinnamon roll might benefit them if you're a baker.
That's right. Let them know why it is to their benefit. Absolutely.
Yes.
If you are the butcher or the baker, you don't go to people and say, hey, I'm just doing my thing. If that works for you, fine.
Or I need the money, so please buy for me.
That's right. And that's why I love that wisdom from Adam Smith, because in Adam Smith's time, your life was not considered an end in itself. You were living for the sake of, whether it was the king or the church or the community. The idea of virtue and selfishness was relatively new.
True.
But in a free market, in a system without compulsion, that is capitalism, there is no inherent conflict between competition, cooperation, production, supply chains, the assembly line, the division of labor, economies of scale, and in fact, all of these contribute to an endless bounty and opportunity and benevolence and beneficence with which we are surrounded.
Is that you speaking?
That's me speaking.
I thought you were quoting somebody.
Well, I'm reading from notes, so It may sound like I'm quoting, but no, this is me rambling. To be sure, the general benevolence of mankind and the deep love, devotion, and admiration you share with your chosen circle of friends and family are not just values of different magnitudes. They are of a different kind. I don't mean to conflate goodwill with the love we feel for our friends, our family, our children, and our romantic partners. But it takes nothing from the goodwill generated by this division of labor to observe that you will do more for and receive more from friends and family than you will from strangers. But it remains the case that strangers are of value to the extent you encounter them and interact with them, and unless they prove otherwise.
So just as you think, well, the world is neutral and it's not out to get me, you can also kind of say, at least in a semi-free society that we're living in today, you can say people are neutral, they're not out to get me.
Yes, and people are more than neutral.
Right.
It depends on where you're spending your afternoons.
Yeah.
Depends on what neighborhoods you're hanging out in.
Or what Facebook page.
But what Facebook page, what social networks you're on. But if you're living well, you're encountering the right kind of people. And most people, by default, can be assumed to be good. You don't have to be suspicious every time you meet somebody.
Right.
That would be absurd, because when you go into a restaurant, you don't interview your waitress to find out if she's somebody who's going to poison your food. Because that never happens. You have every reason to believe that that is not going to happen.
Yep.
When you call up a contractor Well, there you can look up some reviews and make sure you're dealing with somebody competent. But the presumption is you pay somebody to get the job done, they're going to do the job. And 99% of the time, that's what happens. Mm-hmm. The people that you encounter when you go to stores, when you deal with cashiers, when you just deal with your average person, they're just decent people. And as Adam Smith would point out, they're not out there to make your life better. But in fact, and by and large, they actually do. It's one of the crises of the kind of pandemic safety that so many of us are engaged in, and we are here at Casa de la Nasir as much as anyone, mm-hmm. is not only that we can't spend as much time as we'd like with friends and family, but even our relations with strangers are affected by that. Seeing everybody with their mouths covered with a mask and keeping their distance, it's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. Because
strangers are potential values.
Yes.
So people are great. And I guess that's my point there, is people are great, and that's why it's important to me to keep the Ebenezer Scrooge spirit of Christmas. This is, of course, Scrooge at the end of the story when he's had his change of heart, to keep that spirit of goodwill throughout the year. I had a lot of fun this week with, as I promised last week, doing gratitude posts.
Yes.
And although I did 5 every day, and I did them 5 days running, so that's 25 items mm-hmm. of things, not just nice, but just irreplaceable values that I am enormously grateful for. It's almost hard to keep it up because it just goes on and on. You hear me say we're surrounded by miracles, and we really are. It's just, I could look around the studio here and name, art and painting, but when I see art and painting, I think paints and pencils and chalks and paper and production mm-hmm. and framework, and then, I move on to the lights, and we've got studio lights going, and we've got a candelabra with electronic candles and Christmas lights on the Christmas tree, and again, you go from the lights to the piano, and you think of music and musical instruments and the guitars, and everything I see is like a gift. And almost all of it is man-made, people-made, stranger-made. Mm-hmm. And all I had to do was be a decent person to earn enough to trade what I've done for what they've done. And what could be more benevolent, and what could be more conducive to goodwill than that? Because Christmas is coming up, and because we've done an episode on weekends and holidays, and how the calendar isn't arbitrary, holidays aren't arbitrary, and they shouldn't be seen as obligations, they should be seen as opportunities. Mm-hmm. I wanted to take a moment to go back to some of the pro tips that I gave at the end of that episode.
Yes, those are some very good pro tips, especially now that Christmas is upon us.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So just a reminder that Christmas is not the time that you have to go out and do stuff.
I am now obligated to buy so many presents for people.
Yep, and decorate your house to a certain level, and entertain to a certain level. All of those things, putting up lights and having holiday parties and giving people gifts, are opportunities.
Right, and you need to check in with yourself whether or not those are values to you.
Yes.
They're opportunities, sure, but are they actually worth it for you to do?
Yes.
And
are there alternatives?
Mm-hmm. There are
drama-free alternatives, guilt-free alternatives. So what I had said during that lecture, which I then turned into one of our podcast episodes, was remember that the people who care about you mm-hmm. do not want you to sacrifice.
This is true.
Or to find that celebrating them is a painful duty. They don't want that.
We should have talked about this a little bit before Thanksgiving as well.
Oh, did you feel some of that, or did you think of that?
No, I just saw it from some of my Facebook friends. I saw that they were struggling with
feeling,
it. Yeah. That I know there was like some humorous memes out there about how the people who were telling their parents or their grandparents or whoever who have large families, and they're having to tell them, no, I'm not coming over for Thanksgiving, and the kind of pressure.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
And bringing politics into it, and it should be all good. There is no reason
Yes.
for the drama, no reason for the... Well, I shouldn't say there's no reason, because you shouldn't feel guilty about feeling guilty.
True.
The values at stake are enormous, and it can feel like, well, if I get them wrong, I'll feel bad. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to disappoint people. And that's why, again, pro tips. Remember that celebrations are by their nature optional. If you're overwhelmed, sitting out one is always an option.
Yes.
One of my tricks is to reset a holiday. You can't make every celebration or holiday or dinner party better than the last. So be willing to cut back, severely if necessary, in order to reset your expectations.
Right. And we do actually have a built-in excuse this year.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
It's a pandemic.
Yeah. And Amy and I have talked about this because we run Great Lakes Objectivists, which is largely in hiatus right now. It's been virtual.
Yeah.
Every year for Thanksgiving, we would have a turkey. One year, we couldn't make the turkey bigger and better. We also had a crown roast of pork.
Yes, crown pork roast.
Well, how do you get better than that? Well, what you do is you get a $200 prime rib.
No, it's $400.
A $400 piece of meat. And you cook prime rib at your house for the holiday. And what do you do after? So the point is,
oh my gosh, that prime rib was the best thing ever, and I had to do a lot of research to actually understand what I was doing. And
oh my gosh, you don't want to ruin a $400 piece of meat. So, and we've done this with our birthdays, we've done it with anniversaries, where it just feels like every year you want to make it better, and that's a good motivation. It's a bad plan.
Right.
So again, reset. You can't make every celebration, holiday, or dinner party better than the last, so be willing to cut back severely if necessary. And I explained that you should plan this ahead of time with people. At some point, families will do this. They'll say, we're cutting back on gifts this year. We're having a $10 limit. I don't care so much for the arbitrary number thrown on it, but if that works for you, that's great. It's a good idea every now and then to say, hey, let's scale this back.
I think I think I had this idea on my birthday at one point, maybe a couple years back, but this might also go for Christmas. And again, I'll put this out there now. No one needs to get me anything. I just would like to have a 2-line poem that you wrote for me. Doesn't have to be about me, doesn't have to be about you. It just needs to be a poem that is 2 lines long.
Yeah.
That you're giving to me specifically.
Yeah. There once was a lady from China. Oh, wait, that's 5 lines. Okay.
Robert.
So my guideline is be rational. Don't let anyone's unrealistic expectations compel you to be irrational or unhappy. The people who have irrational expectations, the people who will be angry at you because you didn't do what they wanted you to do, or you didn't buy them what they wanted you to buy them, those are not people you should ever feel guilt about displeasing.
Yeah.
Anybody with that attitude, and I know it comes on more subtly than that, it's not as obvious, but if it comes down to that, it's time to say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling all burden and no positive motivation, no value to be attained. All I'm trying to do is escape this disvalue, this pain.
Oh yes, when you find yourself trying to escape a disvalue and that's your main motivation, you've really got to question what you're doing, because you're probably not doing.
Oh my God.
You're probably not serving yourself. You're probably not making yourself happy. You're probably embracing suffering more than values at that point.
I've been talking so much I've been missing the comments, but these are really charming. The Cordairs are opening a second art studio. They're in Jackson, Wyoming, building or outfitting a new studio, a new
Which
art
is
gallery.
So great.
And Linda wrote, we had turkey pot pies for Thanksgiving this year because it was just us and we were building Quent Cordair Fine Art 2. Love that.
That is so
So
great.
yes, be willing to reset and change your expectations if they fit the facts. Especially the objectivists out there, we're supposed to be all fact-oriented, and yet, people sometimes don't stay grounded.
True.
Don't stay in touch with reality.
We've got some nice nice comments here. Emily says, I'm so glad I decided to drop in on this. I really needed these words of positivity and hope.
Well, that is super sweet. Emily's been
am-
facing challenges lately, and she's been downright heroic in keeping her own
Yes.
spirits up
I'm-
and sharing that with us.
Well, it pleases me that you're here, Emily. Thank you so much. And yeah, Jennifer mentioned that that pot roast, or that prime rib that we made was very yummy. I think she was here for that. That by the way, that I put out that prime rib roast, and it was big. It was a big one, and honestly, it was gone. It was gone
yeah,
like
it was-
within 10 minutes. It was just like all bones.
It was something like 15 pounds of meat, and it was maybe 18 or 20 people, and yet, like, everybody ate a pound of meat. It was amazing. It was amazing. It was
so
great.
good.
And Jennifer would know all about how we had to do, well, we didn't have to do, we chose to do a backyard Thanksgiving
Yes.
this year.
Yes, that's right.
And we live in Michigan,
Where it's chilly.
so a backyard Thanksgiving is a challenge, but we had plenty of firewood and the propane patio heater.
Yeah, it was a balmy 48 degrees.
It was,
It's above freezing.
be willing to do different things.
It was actually really, really fun. And Jennifer sends me a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. Amy, I love you.
Oh, well, that's super sweet.
Thank you. And Holly says, I want to send handmade gifts to my family this year. Reset is a good term to not compare to gift giving from previous years.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah,
Excellent.
And the one thing I said is, if you're going to do a reset, just let people know in advance. Hey, this is what I'm doing this year.
Just let people know. It's going to be different.
What you receive from me may be more charming than usual, or maybe more modest than usual. Especially in our marriage, for example, it can be really handy to let people know in advance. Don't spend $1,000 on my anniversary present this year. I'm going to be operating in a different budget than that.
Right.
So let people know in advance. I did mention people actually do appreciate personal gifts more than stuff, and especially as they get older. So let folks buy their own stuff. A personal visit, a greeting card, or a phone call is even better than another necktie or doodad. Again, especially as you get older. At my age, if there's something I went out and bought it.
True.
What I want is not what I want. What I want is what you want to give me. For kids, and I mentioned this before, for kids that doesn't always hold.
True.
Because kids don't have their own money.
Right.
It's kind of a big deal for kids to get things they really, really want.
It is.
But for adults, if there's something you want, you went out and bought it.
Yeah.
Let people get you things they want to get you. Yes. My principle here was, it's all about you. Be selfish in the best way. And do what you want in a way that's true to your style. I did mention, and this was controversial, surprises are overrated.
Oh, right.
As fun as surprises are, it's okay, and sometimes for the best, to just ask somebody what they'd like to do or receive. And this is in the context more of birthdays, I think, and anniversaries than Christmas.
Yep.
But yeah, be independent. You don't have to do what everybody else does with any given holiday. You can, and there are reasons why traditions are traditions. So there may be something good there you want to hang on to.
Yeah.
But be independent. Be first-handed. Don't be afraid to step away and say, hey, this is how we're doing Christmas this year. This is how we're doing Thanksgiving this year.
Yes. And you can also, use your creativity and say, let's start a new tradition here, and we can, do a package exchange or something like that, or just do something you haven't done before and that might make the holiday even more exciting.
Yes.
Yep.
So those were thoughts that I had on holidays that I thought might be valuable for the coming Christmas season. Be first-handed about this stuff.
Right. Yeah, Doug has a funny comment here on YouTube. He says, or make your own stuff, like Reardon's bracelet.
Yes. Yeah, just invent a metal that's never been formulated before, and then for the very first thing you make from it, Okay.
Honey,
I should have said spoiler alert and that I was kidding.
honey, this is 10 years in the making, just for you.
So it's just as valuable as
Piece of
plumbing
scrap.
pipes
Yeah.
and railroad
Right.
spikes. Oh, Lillian, what a piece of work
Yes, Doug,
she was.
Doug did mention his wife's reaction was disgusting. But yeah, yeah, that's his wife eventually
Yes.
when when things settled down and everything, I'm sure Santa did not bring her anything for Christmas. So
Oh, Ken
She was-
Daniger provided her Christmas present.
oh, wait, I forget now.
Oh, he was a coal miner.
Oh, oh my gosh. Very good, darling.
So these are the thoughts we're having on this 2 days after Thanksgiving, which is actually 3 days after Thanksgiving. And thank you so much for sharing yours. We will be talking in the coming weeks about things other than the holidays, but we're also going to be talking a lot about the holidays. One of the
Yes.
things I'm looking forward to is talking about music. So if you would, share with us your favorite Christmas music.
Ooh,
And also, we're looking for Christmas movies we haven't seen yet.
yes,
Good Christmas movies are hard to find.
yes.
Or maybe they're not hard to find, but we've already found all the good ones. So let us know your favorite Christmas movies.
If there's
and
a movie out there called Murder at Christmas Time, just let me know what it is.
Amy
and I'll
wants to
watch
see
it.
Murder at Christmas Time. Well, somebody posted a list of Hallmark Christmas movies, and it's funny because they're all 30 movies with identical covers, and it's always a pretty gal dressed in red and a handsome man dressed in green, and they're standing together in front of a Christmas scene.
There might be a dog.
And there might be and you would every one of these movies looks like, isn't that the same movie? No, they're all different movies. So Amy said, well, where's Murder at Christmas?
I want Murder at Christmas.
Well, you can, of course, we've talked before about we're Murder, She Wrote fans and other murder or mystery. If you know any good murder mysteries, but the kind that have a real benevolent streak to them,
Yes.
because that's what's hard to find. There's a lot of shows about murder. We could watch, CSI or NCIS or, all those murder shows.
Yeah.
But, the more charming murder mysteries. What were we watching? Now I forgot the name. Not Dowling. What's
Father
the other one?
Brown.
Father Brown.
Oh.
Father Brown murder mysteries were
Oh,
great.
so good.
Those were enormous fun. So yeah, if you know any really charming murder series, even the new Sherlock series was great fun.
Yeah.
The Benedict Cumberbatch guy. So many ways to say Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch. I'm actually still laughing about your Ken Daniger joke.
So yes, let us know any Christmas movies we should see and charming murder mysteries.
Oh, Chris comes up with a Murder at Christmas.
Murder at Christmas. All right.
Ooh,
Excellent.
thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Miss Fisher was also super charming. The movie was a little disappointing, but Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, the series, is excellent.
So good.
And
So I want to be Mrs. Fisher.
yeah,
Or
super,
Ms.
super charming.
Was it Ms. Fisher?
And you can tell that's our style.
It is.
Now, because Amy's actually been on vacation from her day job this week,
Yes.
and we have been having the most fun this week. Oh my gosh.
The most fun, the most
Between
relaxing.
Thanksgiving and our anniversary and Greenfield Village and just
Yeah.
one thing after.
It was cycles of like a roller coaster of really, really busy and then complete and utter laziness.
Yeah, it's like we were on a roller coaster and the track just ended and now we're flying through space. And tomorrow morning we land
On a couch.
on a couch. Yeah, oh, did I make that sound tragic? No, we'll land in the most charming of ways. But for that reason, I didn't produce any homework for this week because I'm still doing daily gratitude.
Okay.
And I don't have a Post-it note for the week, but feel free to share with us any wit or wisdom that you think would fit on a Post-it note pad.
Yes.
And it can be your turn to let us know what the Post-it note of the week should be. What I can say is that, as always, show notes will be posted online within 5 to 10 minutes after the episode wraps up. If you have any comments or questions, please post them either on this episode's comments or in the 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Facebook group. If you would like to contribute financially to the show, and several of you already do, thank you so much. We love you for it. You can go to patreon.com/Robert Nasir. And if you are watching us on YouTube, or if you go to YouTube later to watch us, you can find all of the past episodes. You can find playlists with themes, including the Benevolence theme.
Yeah.
And you can share our show from there so that we will become enormously popular, rich and famous. Success will not spoil us. Don't worry about that. We will keep doing what we do, and we will keep inviting you to do it with us.
How about this for homework? So, say for instance you actually still believed in Santa Claus, or maybe you still do. Write down a list of things that you would like for Christmas. Not necessarily to see under your tree on Christmas morning.
Well, that's a sweet goal-setting exercise.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
Oh,
what would you...
I almost forgot.
Yeah.
Speaking of things you would like for Christmas,
Yes.
we're sending Christmas cards this year.
We are.
If we don't have your home address, feel free to either message it to us or look on Amy's Facebook wall, and she's created a link to a service that you can do that anonymously on. Depending on who you trust more with your information, Facebook or this other service. But yeah, send us your home address. We would love to send you a Christmas card.
Yes. I'll post this on the 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir Facebook page.
I bought extra cards this year. They're all nice cards, nothing super fancy. They're not $10 greeting cards, but they are all filled out with my unique handwriting. So for what that's worth, if you're like, who the hell writes like that? That's actually me. And who writes in that charming manner is what you would be thinking. So yeah, send us your...
Robert is one of the best calligraphers, natural calligraphers I've ever seen in my entire life. Some people work at it, some people can barely do it, like myself. But Robert can do calligraphy like
I don't
nothing,
work at it,
like he
so
would
it's
breathe.
not really calligraphy, but you might like it anyway. Amy obviously does.
Oh, it's absolutely super charming, and it's really good. I mean, it's like high quality wedding style calligraphy. Not not the hand lettering that's all bubbly that they had that's more popular right now, but this is like the tried and true calligraphy.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Nasir. And yeah, get us your address. We'll send you a Christmas card. I'm doing Christmas cards this year. We sent them out before. Some of our friends already know that. But what happened was on the social networks, and especially on Facebook, there were a couple people who said, I need Christmas cards. Send me a Christmas card. And I thought, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That they're just willing to come out and say, hey, I want to get paper Christmas cards in the mail, old style.
Yes.
I'm like, that's so cool. And so I thought, okay, let's do it. And, occasionally you'll get people who will say, well, can you send a card to my mother, my friend, somebody who would be cheered by that? So feel free to send us other folks' address too, and let us know who they are to you and why you think they should have a card, even if it's just because. But let us know, just so I have some idea what I might write in the card for you.
Yes. So before we wrap up, did you want to hear about my story?
Oh, I'm sure we would love to hear about your story. Is this the story of...
it's actually not my story.
Story
it's
of Christmas?
No, it's the story of Santa Claus.
Santa Claus?
Yes.
Sinterklaas.
Sinterklaas. Or Christkind. Or
so tell us about Kris Kringle.
So just really quick, I thought it might be fun
Yes.
to let you all know about Santa Claus because I love Christmas history.
Amy will be sharing with you the right book to buy to learn more about Christmas, the Encyclopedia of Christmas.
It'll be in
and
the show
all of
notes.
the best resources. Amy is the expert on Christmas.
I wouldn't say I'm the expert. I would say that I am good at the history. So
she's as good at Christmas as I am at calligraphy.
Yes, that's a fair way of saying that. So basically, you might be wondering, Santa Claus, I don't particularly like the whole, fibbing to children about it, and having them go through all of that. I think it's even more fun to just say, this is all pretend, let's role play. It's kind of like a Halloween sort of thing. Obviously, when you dress up as your favorite superhero, you're not the actual superhero.
Well, if
It's
anybody's
just
listening to
role play.
this and their kids are around,
Yeah.
you've solved that problem for them.
Oops. I'm
Spoiler
sorry.
alert.
Spoiler alert. If
Reality alert.
I apologize if I blew that one, but anyway, so Santa Claus has a really large history, and it does go along. I won't go into how it coincides with the history of Christmas, but basically, as I think a lot of you already know, there is Saint Nicholas. So he was born around 280 AD in modern-day Turkey, and he became a saint in the Catholic Church. He became known as the protector of children and sailors. And there's a lot of stories regarding him. He basically saved a few ladies from being sold into prostitution or slavery by helping their father out with a dowry to get them married. Not a particularly great story, but you know, it was very interesting that he basically gave them bags of gold coins, and you kind of think to yourself, okay, he's giving them gifts. And he also saved children who happened to be deceased and pickled in a barrel, and he brought them back to life. So, you know, kind of rough things about gift giving, gift bringing, children, something like that. And then you've got Father Christmas in England in the 16th century around. And at the same time, you've got Sinterklaas in the Netherlands, the Dutch, in Holland. And you have a lot of these that are fashioned from the Norse god Odin. You know, long beard. He's basically not on a reindeer, he's on a horse. But Odin was also kind of a bringer of justice, in other words, and other things too. So it started in Europe with this whole Saint Nicholas thing, and kind of was integrated with pagan gods and other pagan stories, which I can go into perhaps another time. But Santa Claus, this idea of a gift bringer, it you know, after the Reformation and Martin Luther came in, Martin Luther actually, he didn't like the idea of St. Nicholas. So he came up with this idea of the Christ child, or Christkind, or Christkindl, as in Kris Kringle, which is the Americanization of that concept, or just another name for Santa Claus, I should say. But the Christkind was the Christ child, and it was specifically to replace St. Nicholas, and they moved St. Nicholas's day, which was December 6th, in the celebration for this, to December 24th, which is Christmas Eve, at the time of the Reformation. And it was interesting because they thought to themselves, well, what does this look like? Obviously, this is going to be modeled after the baby Jesus, or the child Jesus. But we're not going to have, you know, a baby delivering presents. That is not quite physically possible. So they came up with this idea of a woman angel wearing a crown to represent the baby Jesus somehow. So they still do this in Germany and Austria and other places like that. And of course you have the Father Christmas idea, or Saint Nicholas idea, with who's in Europe, who's kind of dressed up like, or Sinterklaas, dressed up like a bishop. So he's got the big bishop hat. It's red and white he's wearing, and he's got a handler. He has a helper, somebody who aids him in punishing bad children. So you have Black Pete in Holland, I believe. You've got a bunch of other different ones, and of course you have Krampus, which I think a lot of people are more knowledgeable about now. But that's the European idea. It's very, very dark. But you see this line here. It's a gift-bringing idea. It's you know, somebody who enacts justice, like Odin. And they kept this going even through the Reformation, even though they changed it to a, you know, woman wearing a crown who is an angel who represents baby Jesus somehow. So Yeah, so Sinterklaas, which is basically, it's the shortened form of Saint Nicholas. So Sinterklaas. So, and that's in the Dutch. This came over into the States around 1809. Washington Irving, who brought about a lot of ideas for Halloween, also brought this idea for Christmas in the States, for Santa Claus specifically. So in his book, The History of New York, he talks about a Saint Nicholas as the patron saint of New York. There are a lot of, New York used to be New Amsterdam, and then they changed it to New York. But there were a lot of Dutch people there, and a lot of people who were celebrating the idea of St. Nicholas. So anyway, it grew from there. In 1822, Clement Clarke Moore, you all know him, or a lot of people know him as the one who wrote A Night Before Christmas, which was originally called An Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas. So he wrote this poem thinking nothing of it really. It was just kind of a fluke. He put it out there in a small paper, and after a couple of years, it grew and grew and grew. Thomas Nast, who is an illustrator, came up with a nice illustration of what we kind of see as what Santa Claus looks like at this point. And that grew into even more commercialization and using Santa Claus as a symbol of capitalism, of selling. Before Santa Claus even helped with Coca-Cola sales, he helped with this one kind of water tonic, spring water company, and they used him for that way before. This is in the 1800s, and a lot of other things. And originally it wasn't red that he was wearing, it was a brown suit. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
Isn't that amazing? So it was a furry brown suit. What was happening, and this is from one account that I think is fairly reputable, it wasn't Coca-Cola who came up with the red suit for Santa Claus. I think what happened was, from one account that I've heard from a historian, was that they were coming up with like books to illustrate what Santa Claus looked like, from Thomas Nast and all of this, and his coat was brown, but the way that things were printed back then, it wasn't a true brown, and it ended up looking reddish. And then that kind of evolved and evolved and evolved and evolved. And finally, so in the early 20th century, you had Coca-Cola, and they really popularized a really just a robust, larger-than-life kind of Santa. And it took off from there in malls. There was a Santa, I think that's still in existence, maybe in New York, I think. There was a school for Santas, mall Santas.
So commercialism accelerated the benevolence?
Yes, it accelerated the idea of a Santa Claus, of, he's looking at his good list and his bad list. But you know what? Our Santa is not going to call up on Krampus and, take you away and eat you if you're bad. You're just going to get some coal. And you know what?
Yeah,
and our Santa doesn't even have a helper like they have in Europe, where the helper, or even Santa Claus himself, or I should say Father Christmas himself, is carrying a switch and beating the bottoms of the bad children. None of that. It's all very benevolent.
And you've got to be pretty bad
Yeah.
for Santa not to find something good in you that makes you deserve something.
That's very true.
He's a kindly man. He's just, but he can see the good in you if it's there.
It's very true. So,
Yes.
so that is a really, really quick history of Santa Claus. I could go on another hour about it, but I love the idea of Santa Claus. I love the idea of an outlet for children to go to and to give the list, or to send the list to Santa Claus through the mail. And that whole charm of Christmas for children is there, and it's really, really wonderful. But as an adult, I also very much love it.
Santa's the best.
He's the best because, not only is he fair, but he's just. He knows who is good and who is bad.
Yes, and he will reward you for your virtues. And what more could you want than that?
That is right.
Because that is the essence of goodwill. Yeah,
he is not. I was looking at on Facebook earlier today, and I noticed something that one objectivist organization was putting out. It was basically about how equality is bad, or I should say, equality of outcome for everybody is bad, or everybody gets the same salary, right, or things like that. There's no merit system in that.
Well, that's true. You cannot praise the bad without punishing the good.
Right. Exactly. But I think that in terms of I know this is going to sound corny, but I think Santa Claus is a great example of saying, treating everybody equally in terms of equality of outcome is tremendously unjust. Because
yes,
you know what? Santa is not going to give presents to all children. He's going to give some children some coal.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's the way it is. He is rewarding them on a merit system.
That's right.
And that's a good thing.
On the other hand, if there is good in you, he'll find it.
That's very true.
Because Santa also understands, like Leonard Peikoff says,
mm-hmm,
that the first duty of justice is to praise and defend the good.
Yes.
You knew we'd come back to that.
Yes, Santa Leonard Peikoff. Yes.
Well, it's people hear the virtue of selfishness, they hear about no mercy, and some people think, oh yeah, objectivism isn't very kind. But what could be more kind than properly giving someone credit for their virtues?
Right.
What could be better than being just?
And giving people that visibility if they're good.
Yes.
And that acknowledgement and that praise. And
yes,
it's a wonderful thing. And for those people who have, perhaps fallen by the wayside and, I don't know, became
people who aren't
unjust,
living their own best life.
Right. And people who are not good to themselves and other people, I should say.
Yes, then what you need is a kindly old man to say, well, that won't do.
That won't do. That's right.
So thank you, all of you out there, because we know that you are good souls. Why on earth would you listen to something like this if you weren't?
That's right.
Thank you for all your comments. Super charming. Looking forward to reading them all a second time, and also some of your movie recommendations. We will be talking about Christmas music, so let us know your favorite Christmas carols. Feel free to send those along, post them in the 5 Minutes group or here on the comment thread, or directly to Amy or I. We are wide open and online and ready to hear what you've got to say. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And thanks I'm seeing some of the comments here. It's so wonderful.
Super sweet.
Chris says, it's the story of the first Christmas murder.
That's right. What could be, well, we asked for murder mysteries. We asked for a series of, you get what you ask for. It's Christmas time. Of course you get what you ask for.
The three murdering magi come to town.
Well...
Are they bringing gifts or something else? Okay.
So with that said, thank you again. Thank you as always, and as always, we wish you success.
Yes.
We wish you flourishing. We wish you a fantastic holiday season, which we're now officially well into,
mm-hmm,
because for us it really starts with Halloween.
mm-hmm.
And as always, we wish you love.
Love.